Without further ado, welcome everybody to Indie Hackers Worldwide. Coming to you from Montreal, we have with us Rosie Sherry, founder of Ministry of Test and a current community manager at indiehackers.com with us. Welcome, Rosie. Thank you very much for being with us.
Hi. Thank you.
I've been looking forward to this pretty much all month long. So yeah, as I just mentioned, Rosie, you've got 15 to 20 minutes to tell your story. Probably people will filter in over the next 10 minutes, and then after that, floor will be open to Q&A. This is being recorded and will be available on YouTube sometime tomorrow, depending on how long it takes to process. But with that, the floor is yours, Rosie.
Thanks. Hey, everyone. Okay, so I guess, bit of background. I'm Rosie. I live in the UK in Brighton with my husband and 5 kids, and we homeschool them all as well. They're aged between 1 and 15, so it's kind of like, a bit busy life. It's not exactly how we plan things at all. From when I was, going back, looking for what I was thinking about in life, but I think as you grow older or grow up, then you start to want different things. But basically, I've got a bit of a mixed background. I guess nationality-wise, my father was Irish, my mum's Colombian. I was born in the UK, so I travelled a lot when I was younger as well. So I kind of got to experience many different cultures as I was growing up. And so I lived in Indonesia for a while in my teens or pre-teens, and then in my teens I was in Colombia. And basically, I didn't like Colombia, so when I was 18 I came back to the UK on my own. Didn't know what I wanted to do or anything like that, so I was kind of like, I got myself a job, I found myself somewhere to live, and it was just basically trying to figure things out. And I kind of wanted to work in tech, but I didn't know really much about tech. And then my husband, who was not my husband then, but he helped me get a job as a tester. And so I was like, probably about 20 at the time. So I had no experience, no qualifications or anything, but I kind of managed to get my foot in the door doing testing. So I did a few jobs throughout that time. And then it was like 2001. So I'm starting to feel a bit old here, but that come like 2003 and stuff, it was like the whole kind of .com boom, and there wasn't a lot of jobs going on. And then I had a couple of kids, and then I tried to get a job again after having kids, and it was so hard. It was really kind of depressing. So it's like, it's not something that like society really plans you for. It's like the fact that, society these days, they say, yeah, you can work and you can have kids and you can have it all, but actually the reality is that there's so many people that kind of make life difficult for you. And I had so much kind of blatant discrimination against me as a mother whilst I was in a job and whilst I was looking for jobs and stuff. So I was kind of like forced into doing my own thing, which, I think, looking back, I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because to be honest, I never really enjoyed the jobs that I did. Even though I kind of enjoyed testing, I never kind of like was fully invested in any of the companies that I worked for. So I guess mental health wise, it wasn't like the best thing for me. I was never really happy working for other people. But then, so it kind of gave me the opportunity. So I was like doing some kind of freelance work, and I was with the kids and my husband was working. So I didn't really need to worry too much about money, but I was keen to kind of keep myself busy. And then come like 2007, it was the whole era of the web 2.0, and all these things were popping up around like the internet with, you know, blogging, and it was probably the first, you know, real signs of like hosted platforms that you could kind of use to kind of start building communities. Probably Yahoo groups were probably quite popular then, as were Google groups. But I used it as an opportunity to experiment and to build a community around testing. Because what I had seen over the time in the testing world was that there wasn't a lot of, there wasn't anything out there for testers. And I had basically kind of been doing things in the local tech community. And there are all these like web designers and UX type people, and they all like go into meetups and like conferences, and I was kind of jealous that there wasn't anything for testers. And like the closest thing that there was like an expo event where all they do is have booths and try to sell you stuff, or really big corporate type testing events where like the price tag on it at the time was just like, you know, extortionate. So I always had that in the back of my mind, that it wasn't right that there wasn't anything for testers. And then at the same time, I would go to some conferences and I was always the only tester there. I would never bump into any other testers. It's kind of lonely. And I just thought, you know, that someone needed to do something for testing. So I gave it a shot. I started out by creating a software testing club, which was basically an online forum. It was using hosted software, which is still around. Surprisingly, it's ning.com. They got bought out in the early days, and then they like never updated their software after that. It was horrible. But I was basically kind of stuck into this hosted community platform, which was frustrating at times, but at the same time, I just kind of continued on kind of curating a community. So that started in 2007. Come 2010, I kind of, you know, it was a really kind of positive and active community. I had built up a reputation. At that point, I don't know, there were maybe 7,000 members there. And I had just, you know, done a few positive things. I'd, you know, really kind of brought the community together, and I tried to make things fun, and I really kept out like all the marketing spam that other communities suffered from. And people just seemed to appreciate that. Along the way, we also did things like we created a physical newspaper. So that was quite fun. I have really good memories of that. It was just like, you know, I thought, let's create a newspaper just because we can, and because I had like come across the service that prints newspapers. We did that for about, I don't know, 18 months, and we did it, I can't even remember, it was probably like quarterly we did it. And, you know, it was fun, but it never really made any money. I had charged to send out physical copies, but it was never a money-making thing compared to like the amount of time I spent printing the copies and posting them out. It was kind of a lot of physical work. But interestingly, is that when I look back, all those efforts were very much a foundation of what I eventually moved on to, which was Ministry of Testing. Come around 2010, I was like, right, it was like the community was taking up a lot of my time to build up, or just taking a lot of time to manage. And I made a promise to myself. I was like, I have to make this work for me financially, otherwise I'm going to stop, because it's just like a huge time sink. And you know, it's like, do I want to be spending my whole life just working for free? And I just felt like it was important to kind of make it clear to the community as well that I had to kind of turn this into a business. And so I what I decided to do is I felt like the community needed events. I didn't ask the community if they wanted that. I just kind of knew that's what they needed. So instead of like trying to make software testing club into the thing that was like the paid version of the community, I decided to create Ministry of Testing as the place that was that offered events, which was to begin with, it was a one-day conference and then a training course beforehand. So we did that. We hosted our event. First one was in 2012, early 2012. We had around 65 people show up. We had a training course beforehand. Made a little bit of money. I can't remember off the top of my head. It probably made about $5,000 or something. But the event itself was really positive because it's like all these people that attended, they had known each other online for years, but they had never met. So it was like when they came together, there was like this real positive vibe. It was like it just felt really special. So it's like based on that, that to me made it a success. The fact that people were buying tickets was the right kind of sign. I was undercharging, but I kind of felt okay with that. So I decided just to keep doing that every year. And then every year I built up Ministry of Testing. Hey there. Year by year, so I kind of, the second year I did a one-day conference with a couple of training courses. And then, you know, every year it got bigger. So like the second year it was probably 120 people. The third year it was like 150 people. You know, it wasn't massive growth by any means, but I think within 4 years we were getting like 250 people. And that was kind of like the capacity of the events. And when we started hitting that, then I started adding like workshop days onto it beforehand. And that kind of ended up, you know, making it much more profitable. And, you know, it was paying, by that time it was giving myself more than enough money than I knew what to do with. And I, at that point, around 2014, I think about it because of my kids' ages. It was when just before my girl was born. 2014, I got my husband to come on board. He was fed up with what he was doing, so I was like, you know, I convinced him to come on board to help me. He's a tech guy. He codes, and you know, he knows how to build stuff. So at that point, what we had decided to do was to build a platform where I could host content and charge for it. And the basis of that was that from the beginning of the time that I had done the conference, we had always recorded the talks. So that was the foundation of like an online offering that we made to the community members. And then it was around that time, you know, the community is kind of really strong. The software testing club was still going, so they kind of, you know, complemented each other. And then we moved the software testing club to a subdomain of Ministry of Testing. We changed the technology we were using for that. We were kind of just like investing more and more into the technology, and a lot of kind of integrations going on. Intercom and discourse and the own platform we were building. It was all, you know, starts to get, you know, a bit complicated. Then I guess, you know, around 2015, people had always been asking me, say, oh, I want a conference in my country. Can we do it in my country? And I kept saying no. But then I said yes to someone doing it in New York. So we did the conference in New York. Off the top of my head, that was probably 2015. Again, my daughter was about 9 months old. the whole family flew to New York. I would never recommend you do that. We all stayed in one big hotel room, and to do that and trying to organize a conference in a city that you don't really know that well. So I wasn't enjoying it, but I did it, and we had about 150 people turn up to that. And then we just felt like because we had done it once in the US, we felt like we had to continue doing it. So the next year we did it in Philadelphia, just because we knew someone there, and it wasn't such a kind of expensive or crowded place to do it. So we did it in Philadelphia for a couple of years, had about 200 people turn up each year for that. And then I can't remember what came next, but basically we've done test bashes in Belfast, in Dublin, in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Manchester, in Brighton, in Australia and New Zealand and San Francisco. And we're doing a new one next year in Detroit. So I think at the moment, on average, we're doing about 7 conferences a year, which is interesting and which sounds like a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of work, and it's full of a lot of logistical stresses as well. So alongside that, we're also building up the online learning platform to deliver content and to create, which were mostly the talks to begin with, but we always had a vision of creating courses for testers. So we've been trying to do that. It's been a really slow process doing that. It's like, we thought it would be easy to create content, but actually it's really, really hard. But we're getting there slowly. But throughout the process, like for me, it's like I'm community manager now at Indie Hackers, and some people are like confused as why I will do that when I have this business. But from about 2015, 2016, it came to a point where I knew I wasn't really enjoying where the business was going myself, but I felt like it was important to keep it going. So just like I made the promise to myself at the beginning that I had to make money, at that point I made the promise to myself that this business just has to survive without me running it. And I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to find a way. So what ended up happening is I hired a CEO, and his name is Richard, and he basically started, he badgered me to do Test Bash Manchester, which was probably our 3rd location. And we had worked together for like 18 months or 2 years. And we kind of knew that he was keen to take on more of a role. And he had proven himself delivering and selling out the 2 conferences that he had organized. And also, like, to his credit, he's just so into testing. He can't get enough of it. And I wasn't there. I was kind of getting a bit bored of testing. But I guess, for me, fortunately and luckily, is like he was up for taking on the role, and we had worked together a lot. So we just like continued that relationship, and we worked towards him taking over the company and leading it forward. And with the intention of me stepping back, and I hadn't originally set a time frame for me to step back, though I had kind of said I want to retire when I'm 40. And that's, well, I'm not quite retired, but I'm retired from Ministry of Testing, and I'm 40, so that's pretty cool. I still contribute with bits, but for me, like the indie hacker community work was, a new challenge for me, something that I was really interested in doing. I wanted to get back into learning about the bootstrapping world, startup world. And I felt like I had a lot of experience to add. I started out very much part-time, and I'm kind of full-time on it now. But it's, for me, I feel quite grateful because it's also kind of helped me step away quicker from Ministry of Testing. I think if I wasn't doing this, I would have ended up kind of just doing Ministry of Testing work because I had the time. But now it's like I have to say no to it, and that's okay because we've built a team up, and Richard is there to lead things, and that's where I am now.
Awesome. Thank you. So at this point, anybody who has a question can ask. And if you don't have a mic or don't want to talk, you can also put it in the chat or message me directly.
I'll start.
Go ahead, John.
Hey, Rosie. It's funny because I never actually knew about Ministry of Testing until I saw this invite, but I write a lot of automated test code, so it's sort of in my wheelhouse. And I'm curious if you feel like you can identify like how you've changed the culture of how people test.
It's been a huge impact, I think. Just like looking back, like 2007, when I was starting out in testing, the world was different back then, really different. It was like a lot of manual testing. That still kind of goes on, and I don't think you'll ever get rid of that. But it's all old school testing, test cases, corporate environments, really expensive kind of software that people try to, test automation software. Was it Load Runner? People would, try to sell into you, or you feel forced to learn because then you could go out contracting and earn lots of money doing test automation. But now it's like flipping it to where it is now. It's like, it's very much a different world, and I do think like Ministry of Testing has had a huge impact on testers and where the test community has gone. And for that, I feel like kind of like that to me is like an honor that I've kind of managed to play a part in that. And it's very much, I think, Ministry of Testing and Indie Hackers have a lot of similar things. So it's like Indie Hackers is there to support the community, and everything like Cortland tries to do is just for the best of the community. And really that's what Ministry of Testing was trying to do. We were trying to kind of bring new ideas and encourage people to speak about things that they were working on, that other people weren't talking about. I was constantly trying to like start new discussions or getting people to write about things just so that we could share them more and help take the testing world to where it needed to be, because I could see a lot of the tech world or the development world weren't quite seeing the value in what testers were doing.
That's funny. I've relied extensively on external testing crews and internal testing software for like 5 years.
And how has that been?
Critical. I don't know, anything that touches financial transactions, if it's not tested, it's like, I don't know, I don't sleep well.
Yeah. It's so important, and yet at the same time in some industries it just it's not done well, or it's not done efficiently, or people don't know enough about testing. But also I guess I don't personally have experience in the finance industry, but that's like a whole it's a whole world I don't really know about. But I guess how people approach testing there is very different to how they approach like web apps that aren't so important or critical.
Thanks for the question, John.
If that's okay.
Go for it.
Rosie, I want to appreciate you sharing your story with us. And I know that time is of the essence for you. It sounds like you got a really full plate. So I do appreciate you taking the time today. And I just wanted you to know, like, what I got from what you said is that, I think I'm right where I need to be with a particular thing I'm working on and developing. And I just need to keep going. That's what I hear is the main thing. Like like you, you know, there's, you know, kind of a unique set of circumstances, and also still haven't really been that satisfied with a lot of the jobs that I've taken.
Yeah.
You know, like at the end of the day, I'm going, God, I'm doing this for these guys. Why don't I just put this into my own business? And so, yeah, I really appreciate what you shared. And I don't really need a lot of people to like help me solve the problems. I think that's where the business gets forged. It's just nice to hear about your story, and that like I've got one too, and I'll just keep going. So
Yeah,
thanks.
I think it's important just to follow the things that you want to do. I think a lot of people don't always appreciate that, or dismiss it for money, or dismiss it for, you know, other opportunities. But looking back, I've never really been happy working for other people. I mean, to be honest, it's like the only time I've been happy working for someone else is with indie hackers. So, you know, and I got a lot of satisfaction from doing the Ministry of Testing stuff. And I never like chased metrics. I never like, you know, set myself a goal of doing worldwide conferences. It really wasn't something that I wanted to do. It's like the idea of worldwide conferences just stresses me out.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, I just kept doing what I felt was the right thing. And I just don't think enough people kind of do that. But I think also when you do that, people see that you're doing the right thing, and they end up kind of believing in you too. You know, so I don't know. That you know, I call that my marketing strategy, but it was never really a marketing strategy. I was just like trying to do things the right way, and I didn't.
Yeah.
I kind of really didn't like the corporate world, so I was just like, well, I'm just gonna do things my way and see how it goes, and you know.
Yeah. I've been working with startups for quite a while, and I've wound up, I'm kind of that guy in a startup where once you've got your MVP figured out and you need to start making money, but you don't have a clue like what to say or any of that, like I can be that guy that figures all that out. And but it's just never been a company that I've met to date that's just like somehow not a little bit shady. Like it's, you know, it's inevitable. And just tired, just totally tired of that. So the thing that I really wanted to focus on is just educating the consumers, like giving them transparent information about the products that they can get, and like really let them choose what they want to do, like respect customers. And yeah, so I think that's really what's driving my project. And it sounds like, you know, I'm not alone in thinking that that might actually be a good idea. And I can really see how in business it could actually be really smart way to conduct business too. It's shocking, but
I wouldn't dismiss it, and you know, say follow the course and see where it goes, because you don't know where it will end up as well, or who you'll meet along the way, or what ideas you might come across. So I used to get funny looks when even from my husband in the early days. He'd say, "What? Make money from that? How?" I said, "I don't know." But you know, we found our way, and you know, I think people are too quick to judge, or you know, they don't have the picture, or they don't have the same vision as you might have, even if you don't know what that vision is. But yeah, I think more people should just follow their gut.
right on. I'll keep going. Thanks.
I had a question about your branding. It's very unique and like engaging. I think it's some of my favorite branding I've seen. But I was just wondering how the name Ministry of Testing came to be, and like the art style you have there, and where did that come from?
Yeah, it's kind of inspired a bit by the Britishness of us. So you say you get the Ministry of Education, you get the Ministry of Justice.
What about the Ministry of Sound?
The Ministry of Sound as well. And you know, the logo, all the ministry type logos, or many of them, very much have that kind of design around it with the crown and the crest and stuff. So we kind of just played on that idea. I had to think of something to put in the middle, so I thought, oh, I'm going to put a ninja in the middle, and then there's little stars in the crown as well. I had a designer friend who helped me put it together. He actually came up with most of it himself. And then alongside that, we kind of have these little mascots. So we, if you look at the website, you'll see these kind of type characters, and they're based on an ebook that someone wrote. And the ebook was of different types of testers. So you get like the security guy, you get the micromanager, you get like the drama queen. So I can't remember how many there are. There's about 10 of them. And over the years, they've improved a bit, and we just keep reusing them to kind of like when we publish like articles, we try to use those characters in all the articles to try to represent what the article is about. And people just within the community, especially, they've become quite fond of the mascots, so to speak. We do. I mean, one of the things that we have is that people have. I think there's 8 or 9 people who've got tattoos on them. They've like got Ministry of Testing tattoos on their body, and that is like, I don't really like to brag about it, but it's like they've just done it because they've wanted to do it. And then we've got like this private group where people join when they get a tattoo, and then we give them free tickets to conferences because we think they're crazy for doing that. But at the same time, that's like kind of like the impact that Ministry of Testing has had on some people is that they just kind of, it's kind of done a lot for them personally, that they've they're quite happy to just go ahead and do that. But that kind of started because I handed out fake tattoos at our meetup events before our conferences and stuff, and people would like put them all over their body, and then we would joke about getting real tattoos. I didn't think anyone would actually do it, but they did. So there you go.
I think as an American, I had the wrong idea. I thought it was like ministry as in you're going to church, and I saw the cross. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
Well, so, we've got meetup groups as well. So we've got about, I think it's like 75 meetup groups across the world. And I think it's, where is it? Saudi Arabia, they wanted to do a meetup group, but they asked us if they could change the logo because it had a cross on it. Because they're not allowed to have crosses on their stuff. So we made the exception for them.
But how did they get a work around that? They just take the cross off?
Yeah, I think we just edited it to like a little star or something. I can't remember, but yeah.
Rosie, quick question. Hi.
Hi.
So, how's it going? So,
are you hiring?
I am hiring, actually.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's why I'm in the call, just to publicize that. No, I wanted to ask, because you said you were doing some sort of monetization at the time. You wanted to monetize, and you chose events. Was there anything else that you were doing to monetize, or thoughts that you had on monetizing your community other than events at the time? Or even now, have you thought about other monetization?
Well, I thought there was always potential to do marketing type activities, and I did some, and we still do it to date, actually. So we do like advertising. We don't generally do like web advertising, but we tend to do like email advertising in our newsletter, or via social media. We'll kind of work with some companies. That was like really popular like 3 years ago, but now it's like companies' budgets, it's just like really hard to, I find it's just been a lot harder to convince companies to spend any kind of money. I've thought about just basic online membership to access private content within the forum. I didn't have confidence that that would actually kind of get off the ground. Yeah, I just kind of stuck with events, and like for the first 3 years, like the event money was enough, but plus, even when it was like just me doing it myself, I was making like, for a couple of years, I was making like 60, 70K just from newsletter sponsorships and some social media kind of stuff. But that was because like I had started a newsletter, and I did a newsletter every single week. I used to cry sometimes doing it because I really started to hate it. But you know, that newsletter was getting results on ads I was putting on. So I started. It was probably at the time probably the only testing related newsletter that was going out every single week that had about 25K subscribers.
Wow.
And when I started that, I started charging like 200 quid, £200 for an ad. And then at one point it was like booked up for the whole year at that rate. So I was like, right, I'm putting the prices up. And then we put the prices up. I think I reached like 400 or 500, like 400 for old customers and like 500 for new customers per issue. But now it's kind of died down a bit, and they're not fully booked out. And I think, you know, there's just generally a lot more, I guess, competition. I think, you know, newsletters, I feel, are not email generally. You know, it's still a, you know, important place to promote your stuff or communicate with your customers, but it's definitely dying down. I think it's compared to like two or 3 years ago. It's like it's so much harder to get people's attention. But we make money now from the online platform as well, which is membership. So we've got about 1,000 customers there.
Brilliant. Wow.
We have lots of ideas for for making money, but it's like it's easy to get distracted by all the ideas, when in fact we're probably better off focusing on what's working, which is the conferences and training and the online platform. But yeah, it's like there's so many distractions, and I think I think people perhaps don't appreciate that. It's like once you have the ball rolling on something, it's easy to start thinking of the next thing, but actually it makes a lot more sense just to focus on what you have and keep building that up, and then that will free you up to, you know, hopefully financially to do other things.
Makes a lot of sense.
Could you talk a bit about what goes into organizing these events, and especially on things that have stayed hard after doing it for years and things you've been able to make easier, and how?
Yeah, it's still not easy to sell tickets. So we've kind of most of them we've not been able to break the 350 mark on them, and I kind of sometimes I struggle with the decisions I made. So, you know, hindsight is, you know, it's so easy to look back, but in hindsight, I think we'd have been much more profitable doing 1 or 2 locations rather than doing many locations. Because now it's like we serve more people, but like most of the events have between 150 to 200 people attend. But each new event has a lot of work that needs to go into it. So there's a lot of work that goes into choosing speakers. There's a lot of work that goes into getting to know new locations. That's quite stressful. Finding venues, speaking the dialect, or finding people to work with. That's very stressful as well. Our approach has been to work with local testers who want to help organize a test bash, and they help us with like the logistics in the cities that we host a conference. So to some degree, it's like you know, they handle a lot of that, but to another degree, it's like there's things that you need to think about. It's like the recording of the talks. How reliable are the cameramen if you're using them the first time? Are they going to show up? There was one guy, I think it was the first time we did it in Netherlands, and it was like 10 minutes before we were due to start, and he hadn't showed up. And we're like, oh my God, what's happening? You know, stuff like that. It's like nobody, you know, sees those things. He showed up in the end, but it's like, you know, it's not fun when the videos are such an important part of the conference. Another part of it that's not a lot of fun is just the legalities of hosting events in other countries. So we have to register for VAT or tax in most of the countries that we host events in. So now we're dealing with tax returns, all these, you know, that we have to fill in either monthly or quarterly, or some of them are yearly now, because just took us like 2 years to get to yearly returns. But that's like stressful, you know. And like Germany, it's like the tax returns are in German. It's like, you know, hey, how much fun is this? So it's like, you know, it's not, you know, to me, a lot of it is not fun work. Luckily, it's like we've never hired a salesperson. Our community has always been, to me, our salespeople, or the people we reach out to. We've never spent money on ads. I just have a personal dislike for ads and giving money to Google for stuff like that, or Facebook. It's just not where I want to spend my money. But yeah, I mean, in some sense, like, none of our conferences have failed. None of them have made a loss, but some of them have. We've really had to put a lot of effort into promoting it and trying to figure out ways to get more ticket sales. In an ideal world, we wouldn't have to do that, and it would be easier. So, like, you know, Australia that we're doing has been slow, but like New Zealand that we're doing is just like sold out really quickly. Well, it's not quite sold out, but we've sold enough tickets really quickly just for it to, you know, more than break even and make a profit, and to make us relax and feel comfortable about it. So it's, you know, it's a learning experience for each location we do. And for some of them, we've decided not to continue. And it's, you know, there's always various reasons for it, but sometimes we think it's a good idea doing a location and it ends up not being a good idea. But at least we try. You know, we're triers.
Rosie, have you experimented with like the online conference space, like Crowdcast, stuff like that?
Yeah, in the sense that we don't do conferences online, but we do host like masterclasses online, which look like webinars. And the approach that we've taken is that those are free to attend live, but then the recordings are put behind a paid wall. So that for us was a way to keep new content coming when we didn't have any. And we also do AMAs through Crowdcast. And we do those once a month. So we get an expert to come on to talk about something once a month and do that. For us, that's been really great for kind of lead generation emails. So we get people's emails basically when they sign up. And that's been really good for like list building and things like that. Instead of just a standard, put your email in this in here when you sign up, or, you know, come to the website. Doing the online events has just been good for
that. Rosie, quick question. First and foremost, similar to what Chase was saying, thanks a lot for your time today. Really enjoyed the story. One of the questions I had, it seems like you got a pretty pretty significant email subscription kind of group or a list. Being in the UK, has the GDPR affected how you go about the collection of a lot of your the details on your subscribers? And did you have to make some adjustments as to the communication to new subscribers or any of that sort of stuff?
Yeah. So basically, a lot of the, like when I mentioned like 25k email subscribers, those came from when I started out software testing club, and it was really annoying, but we decided just to ditch that email list and try to get as many of the people on it there to a new list. Even though like I had never like added anyone without authorization to the list. I had, you know, never done anything like that. I had never sold the data in any kind of way. It just felt like the right thing to do. And to be honest, it's like, well, it's kind of nice to start afresh as well, and to just start again. But on the side, we had this platform that we had built, which was hooked into Intercom, and so that was built in with, you know, GDPR in mind, so we had no issues with that. And I think when GDPR came into effect, that was probably already around 15,000 members. Anyways, it's probably, I think, I don't even look at the numbers now. I think it's 25 or 30k members we might have now there on the system. But yeah, the email list, we started from scratch. It was really stressful, but I didn't have to do it, so I delegated that task. So yeah, we just, you know, we were careful about, you know, we just redid everything and made sure that, you know, we had the right check boxes at the right time. But yeah, it's not fun. But, you know, it's totally the right thing to do. But to be honest, a lot of it wasn't really that different from what we were doing. It's just like having to set up the new processes and forms and understanding what to do if someone wants to remove themselves or remove themselves entirely from everything on our system. So we had to kind of look at everything we had and create processes to allow that to happen. But yeah, we've always been good, so it wasn't, yeah, I don't know, it's a pain. That's what, you know, to me, that's the thing about businesses that I don't like dealing with. I wish it was easier. I like the whole cookie stuff now, and the I can't remember what you call it. I just think, oh my God, why, you know, why are people doing this to businesses? But yeah, it is what it is.
Cool, thanks.
If anybody else has a question, you can go for it. Just make sure to unmute yourself first. But I did have a question about running the workshops. Are the main events themselves paid as well?
Yeah, it's all paid. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, that makes sense. And what is kind of the difference in content between the workshops and the main event with the speakers, I suppose?
Yeah.
And do they feed into each other with attendance, or do they cannibalize?
So workshops. So I guess we have three things. We've got training courses, which are like full day or multiple day courses. So there might be 1, 2, or 3 days, like intense kind of courses. We've got workshops, which tend to be like half-day workshops. So people would sign up to like two to have on a day. And then there's the talks. Generally, yeah, I mean, it's all paid for. It's most of the talks we choose, they come from submissions from the community. We avoid as much as possible like inviting people, but sometimes we feel like we need to try to get the balance. Workshop submissions come in from the community as well. And our approach has very much been like, partly we want to have really good workshops, but also we want new people to get experience doing workshops as well, or talks for that matter. So a lot of the philosophy and approach that we've taken with our events is really kind of trying to invest in the community, in new voices. And I think the advantage of it is that, at least, I guess something that I'm quite, I find it difficult to say that I'm good at something, but something that I've been quite good at is spotting people within the community who I think can do a good job, especially when they don't believe in themselves. So there's been quite a few people where I've kind of gently pushed, should I say, to do talks or to submit, and then I would say almost immediately as soon as they submit something, I'm like, I already have it in my head that they're going to be speaking. But yeah, that's been an important part, and another part of that which kind of feeds off of it is it's like a lot of conferences are doing better at it now, but we very much kind of led the way in terms of being like an ethical conference. So we pay all expenses for every speaker that comes to speak. And there were very few, if any, conferences that were doing that, like 5, 6, 7 years ago. And that to me just was like, it was the right, again, it's, it was the right thing to do. It's like, if you're going to come and speak at a conference and help us, create part of a great day for people, it's like the least we can do is like pay your way. It wouldn't feel right that they would have to pay their own way. But it so happens that doing the right thing has now, or increasingly now, is becoming more of a trend where more conferences are having to do that because they're getting so much pressure from the community. If now conferences that don't pay for expenses as a minimum are like struggling to get people to apply to speak. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. That makes sense. Do you think you set that trend in a way, or it did just happen to work out? You were ahead of the wave.
I think a bit of both. I don't think I can take credit, and I think also testing conferences generally have been better at doing that. There's still a lot of conferences, like tech conferences or agile conferences, that won't do that or won't even consider doing that. They might compensate like up to £500 for your travel expenses, but when people end up spending like two grand or £1.5 grand to fly and to pay for hotels and food, it's like that doesn't really cover it. And yeah, I'd like to think so, but who knows? I don't know. Does it matter? I'm not sure if it matters. I'm just happy that we've done the right thing, and that makes me comfortable, and that makes me happy that we've done the right thing. And that, to be honest, that's all that really matters to me.
Does it affect who you're able to have on if for example, that you'd have to fly them across the world?
Yeah. So so we don't have like a set rule, but generally it's like we wouldn't like have people fly across the whole world to do talks. So we try to keep it balanced. Maybe having 2 speakers that come from afar, and we maybe have 9 speakers or 10 speakers in total for like a single day conference. but now, say, as things are advancing, we're starting to think more of things like, well, what's the right thing to do with regards to the climate? So it's like, should we become more strict in with our limits, or, you know, with our miles? Should we be calculating the miles that speakers are traveling, and how that might impact the climate, or, you know, where our attendees are coming from? I'd love to, we haven't done this yet, but I'd love to calculate miles that from speakers, from staff, and from attendees, and then see if we can offset that. But I have no idea yet, like how many miles that would be or how much that would cost us. But again, it's like me just trying to think of the right thing to do. It's like that to me feels like the right thing to do. Is like, what can we do to make our events more eco-friendly? And we've done quite well. Like Brighton's very much like the food comes from local suppliers. We try not to have much waste, you know, or as little waste as possible. We're really mindful, like with the swag we give out, things like that. And, you know, any opportunity to not be wasteful is, you know, we try. I think we do all right, especially when you compare it to other conferences. It's like, there's so much swag that gets handed out, and actually most of it is quite useless. So we try not to be like that.
Do you have an example?
Let me jump in for a second.
Oh, go
Sorry,
for it.
Rosie. Thank you so much for your for sharing about your story. It's awesome to hear, and I'm glad I learned about this resource. I gotta jump out. I just wanted to be able to say that rather than chat. Thank you all as well for meeting this morning. Anthony, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, y'all have a good morning.
Have a good one. For anyone planning events, what swag have you found is more used or useful, or what just gets trashed?
Nice t-shirts are great. Like t-shirts that people actually appreciate wearing. Our ones, you know, are pretty much blatant with our logo on the front, but people love it, and they generally wear them a lot to like other events. So I kind of feel okay with that. And often they give them down to their kids, or the kids steal them from them. We've done mugs. We've done like reusable water bottles or reusable cups. We do, I think every conference needs notebooks. So we do like lightweight 50 type page notebooks. What else? We've done, you know, we do stickers, loads of stickers. We've done tattoos. I'm not sure how eco-friendly tattoos are. They're kind of all right. Well, we do like canvas bags as well. I think if we don't do those, then sometimes people don't have things to carry stuff around. But what we do is we don't force people to take any of it. So it's like, it's not like everyone gets that when they come. It's like they get the choice of taking stuff. So I think that's important too, just to give people the choice, because some people don't want it, and I don't think we should force unwanted stuff on people.
We've got about half an hour left, so if we have any more questions, we can go ahead and ask, and otherwise perhaps take advantage of the opportunity to do a bit of round robin and maybe start some more like in-depth conversation about what anybody is working on, if that sounds good to everybody.
Rosie, I have another question. You shifted from being from doing everything yourself to kind of really needing assistance from others to help you out, either before or after, you know, different forms of monetization. Did you reach out to the community and get other testers on board to at least help out with some of the tasks here and there, because you figured they'd at least, you know, they'd care a little bit more? Or did you go straight to say, right? So maybe I just hire someone or I outsource work to someone who specializes in this particular task. And is there any aspect to your hiring or your outsourcing process where you're kind of looking for people who are either in a similar industry or who have interests in the testing and, in the testing world?
Yeah. So to begin with, like when I was doing the events myself, when I started up the company, I had an accounts person in place. I had it in my mind, I'm not doing accounts from the outset. So I always made sure that I had someone there to help me, the way I could just kind of throw over any accounting stuff so that I didn't have to think about it. I know that's, not my strong point, and it's just something that naturally stresses me out. So I think that was a good decision. Event-wise, I also knew in myself that I disliked kind of working with venues and swag suppliers and tech videographers and sound people. So for Brighton, which was our longest running event, I've had a freelance event manager. She's been with us from the beginning, and she's still with us. So that has been great. But she literally just still helps us with Brighton, and sometimes occasionally helps out with other events. But she focused purely on kind of logistical stuff, making sure that everything was in place with food and attendees and speakers, and just making sure that I didn't have to think about that aspect. But I would still, in the early days, be the one focused on making sure that we sold tickets, making sure that I would like choose the speakers, things like that. And then like as it kind of grew, I was kind of plugging things together. I'm not a coder by any means. I can dabble in things, in a very minor way. Originally, like our website was like WordPress. So really, like my first hire was my husband, when I managed to get him on board, and then he started building out proper tech for things, which was nice. And then after that, it was like things got more and more, and I was doing like so much. Like I was doing a couple of events and managing the community and all those things and making the decisions. I think probably like the pressure of just like making decisions was probably the hardest thing. Even if it wasn't necessarily a lot of work, but I failed trying to hire people. I have, someone who's still a very good friend. She was up for joining me to help me out, and then at the last minute she backed out. That was like really kind of a bit of a punch in the teeth or the face. And I probably tried for about a year just to hire someone, because I knew I had the money for like a decent salary. But I tried hiring people from the community that I thought would be interested, but I failed twice, and that was really depressing. And one time, with my friends, it was, we were still friends afterwards. It wasn't a big deal, but one of the people that I tried to work with, ended up being a bit of a sour relationship, and that's not fun. I wouldn't want anyone to go through that. And then it's like, I don't blame him. I don't even know if I blame myself. It's just like the way it ended up. I have regrets about that, and I don't claim to be perfect in how I try to do things. But I think sometimes, I think what I learned from that is sometimes, you can rush things too fast. You go take things too fast, and then you realize you're not the right fit with working with someone. I think I feel confident like with Richard, who's our CEO now, and I've kind of feel confident all along the way that he's not all along the way, but we worked together for 18 months before committing or even started talking about anything like longer term. It's like the first 18 months he was helping out with Test Bash Manchester. And then he started, I said to him, I was like, I don't have anyone to properly manage the US event. I don't know where we're going to host the event, and I just don't want to deal with this. Do you want to manage it? And so, you know, he led with that. So we had that, we had the experience of working together from that aspect. And it was a very casual kind of agreement, but you know, I knew that from working together for that period of time that we got on well, and that I was to that point I had taught him a lot about how to manage events, how to run the events. And by the time it came for him to do more, it was kind of like he knew what to do, kind of, but you know, there was still a lot of things that I had to teach him, but at least we knew like how we worked and our boundaries, and we knew we had like similar visions. So I kind of feel more confident. But you know, he's got a share in the company now. Like that's our agreement. But I don't stop worrying about it. You know, I feel comfortable, but it's still in the back of my mind. I still worry all the time that something could go wrong, or what if the like relationship turns sour. But I don't think it will. But it's still there. I don't know if I can ever stop worrying about it as a business owner. But actually going back, it's like he's been responsible for hiring everyone in our team now, so that's been great. I've not really, you know, I helped out with some of them, but now he's like entirely responsible for hiring everyone, and I'm like, that's, you know, I'm really happy not to have that responsibility.
Cool, thank you.
I was curious if you had any thoughts why it's been difficult to sell out any event over about 350 tickets. Why do you think that seems to be the ceiling?
I think partly we're probably doing too many events. We're stretched with resources. So like now we're trying to hire for event manager. We hired someone for community manager, and she's essentially been doing event management stuff and not been able to focus properly on the community things. So, you know, we're still limited in like our budget, and we're trying to be careful in how we grow. You know, so we, you know, it's a 7-figure company, but we still have to be careful how we grow, and it's not like massive amounts of budget. But yeah, I think, to be honest, if we could find like that sweet spot of having probably 2 or 3 more people on the team to kind of offload tasks, because there's just like there's always so much to do. There's always more we could be doing. There's more we would love to do that would help the community grow and therefore help more tickets grow. But we're all just so stretched. So yeah, I think mostly that's what it comes down to. But you know, I think in time we'll probably like end up sticking with events that we feel are the right events to stick with, and events take time to build up. So it's like, if you look at the history of Brighton, it took 3-4 years to get to, you know, point of selling out. And even though we're doing events in different locations, I think we need to give each location that 3 or 4 years to get to that point of, you know, selling a really good amount of tickets. Because even though we have like the reputation online, there's still a lot of work to do in each local region, where the majority of people tend to come from. So like our UK events, the majority are UK people. American events are majority, you know, Americans. And there's other aspects like our customers tend to be companies that the testers work for, so they have to go to their bosses for budget approval, and that's like, you know, an interesting process within itself. So it's like, you know, they have annual budgets that they have to stick to, or they need months, you know, several months notice before to be able to buy a ticket. We have, you know, we've had people say, you know, they try to buy a ticket once it's sold out, and they're like, oh, okay, you know, I've been trying to get this ticket for months, and now I go to it and it's all sold out. There's none left. So it's like, you know, it's like we can't control how companies, the slow way that companies move, and also it's like, you know, I think there's a lot of struggle for testers to get the budget, to get, you know, have that culture within their company that they can go away for 1, 2, 3 days to focus on learning. I know a lot of testers can't convince their companies to go, and then a lot of testers can't commit their own personal budget to do that. So there's still those kind of challenges. But yeah, I don't know. It's, you know, it's not a massive community as well, so it's not like, you know, there's always going to be more devs out there than there are testers. But, you know, I don't know what a realistic amount is for the events, attendees wise, to get to. To be honest, it's like 300 is a good amount for an event, and more than that, it starts to get, you know, a bit, what's the word? I guess people get a bit lost when there's so many people. They don't get to know each other. So, you know, I don't think small events are a bad thing. Obviously, financially, it's not as easy, but I think it's nice to grow slowly as well, and not to, you know, you can kind of test the waters with new locations, things like that. So yeah.
Where do most of the costs come from when doing an event?
Venue, food, speakers, costs, and staff. So yeah, staff-wise, you know, you need, like the way it's set up at the moment, we need someone to manage the accounts, we need someone to manage the event, we need people to choose a lineup that's good. We need, you know, people to look after the speakers. But yeah, so probably it's like, you know, staff is probably the most expensive, and then food and venue cost.
Are most revenues ticket sales or like sponsorships on balance?
Ticket sales, definitely. We've done all right on sponsorship. We could do better, but I think we struggle because we don't do what the sponsors want. So like in the early days, they would want to buy an email list, and we always said no to that. And then if it wasn't the email list, they wanted to buy a speaking slot, and we would never do that. And then, you know, I guess, you know, it's trying to become better at pitching that sale. And because we don't have a salesperson, I don't particularly feel like we want or need one for that. But it's just like, you know, it's like people want, it's hard because often companies want different things that we can't offer them, and then we struggle to just, you know, communicate what the value is that they get. So it's like they can sponsor like our t-shirts and get their logo on the t-shirts as an example, but really they just want the email addresses of people. They want their contact details, and it becomes very, very transactional. And that's not really who we are, or what the community is about. So it's like we naturally alienate a lot of companies because of that. And that's sad to me, is that people can't see beyond that. And, you know, but we've had, you know, recently I've started seeing like some bigger companies change their attitude. We've been trying to get people to sponsor tickets instead of like, you know, sponsoring, you know, trying to get a booth or something like that. We would say, look, why don't you sponsor some tickets? And finally, at Brighton last year or this year, a company did that, and it was amazing. It's like they sponsored 3 tickets plus hotel for 2 nights, and the amount of attention they got from doing that was, you know, more than any other sponsor they'd ever had. It got shared online a lot. They got a lot of credit for it. And it was just, you know, to me, it's like that's the way companies should be sponsoring, to, you know, to get their name out there and get recognition and do the right thing, not to kind of push a product into your face, because that's just not the right place to do it.
Makes sense. Do you have ideas for other like alternative ways sponsors can sponsor an event without being just an ad? Especially, I suppose, if say everyone was sponsoring tickets, that starts to, you are not going to get as much attention from it like the 100th time if you're not early to it. So are there other ideas you have as well as of ways companies could be more visible and be more aligned with the community?
I'm trying to remember what we do now. For me, it's like one thing we've done is like design a notebook, like a note-taking notebook. So we got someone in the community to design it. It was it was for taking test notes in like a structured format. So we designed a notebook and we got it printed out and sponsored by a company. That was American Express. That was quite good because it was creating something that was actually really useful for testers, and that they would take back. And, you know, it was done in a way that wasn't in your face. Like, you know, there was no sales pitches. It was just like, this is supported by American Express. So, you know, I think companies should seek to do more of that, and conferences should probably seek to see how they can create things that the community would value as well. And again, like t-shirts, like the community love the t-shirts or stuff like that. I think it kind of gives them a sense of kind of identity that they can often like go to other non-testing events and they see someone else with a Ministry of Testing t-shirt and they feel like they can just approach them because, you know, it's the sign that they're part of a community. But generally, I would say anything that kind of gives value to attendees. Another one is meetups, just like sponsoring the cost of meetups so that we can give more to people without it coming out of our personal pockets as the organizers. It's like help us put on a better event, help us cover the costs. And really it's like, apart from the exhibition booths that most conferences do, is like anything goes. It's just like, you know, it's just taking the mindset of like how can you support the event, not how much can I take away from it, which is what most vendors or sponsors go to events for. Is like, how much can I get from you? And that's very much the culture of, you know, you get approached by marketing people, and that's how they approach sponsors. It's like how much can I get from this from your event? How much can I get from your people? How much data can I get? It's all very transactional. And, I don't think brings value to people.
That makes sense. Is the culture the same with companies in the UK versus other Europe versus America, or they all kind of have the same attitude?
I think overall they've got the same attitude. I'd love an easy way to change it. But actually, like a more recent trend is instead of 2 vendors coming to us, it's like we have companies that are recruiting coming to us. So that's interesting. We kind of have a bit more flexibility from that aspect. So I think there's just a trend in the fact that it's hard to find good testers. So more companies are looking for alternative ways to find good testers. And that was actually the company that sponsored the tickets. They were looking to recruit. So they weren't trying to push like a product or anything. They just wanted to get their name out there as a good company to work for. And that kind of does the job, I think. And so, I think, having people who want to recruit probably make better sponsors for conferences, at least our conference, because they kind of want to get to know the community a bit and find good people. So it kind of makes more sense. So I hope that continues, but we'll see.
That makes sense. John, did you have anything else you want to ask?
Not off the top of my head. I found the insights from sponsors and sponsorships, and I like the idea that ideally you'd want the sponsors to really support the event instead of just extract as much as they like. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I've had a lot of experiences going to conferences, and the vendors more often than not tend to just be very grabby, just like looking to extract as much as they can. And so that makes a lot of sense. It's I think you're right on the money there.
Yeah, we tried to ask them, it's like what, it's like rather than saying, to an extent, it's like this is what we offer, but at the same time, we like to ask them what do they want to get out of it, and what can we do to help them achieve that. And at the same time, I guess just sometimes just saying no to sponsors and saying actually you're just not the right fit. I'd love your money, but you'd have to do this. It's a hard thing to do, I think. Event sponsorship. I'd love to have more insight into how other conferences do it.
I was drawing a lot of comparisons in my own head. So I used to run the hackathons, which can be kind of similar in vibe a lot as well. Although most of the sponsors there are interested in recruiting, since at least the ones that I was involved in, it was very student focused. And so almost everybody that was there was recruiting in one way or another.
Yeah, definitely. And there's definitely like a lot we could improve, but again, it comes down to like a lack of resources. It's like we're all juggling many balls. I think we could do a lot better if we did outreach, but we don't do any outreach. It's like all the sponsors we get are people coming in. We might send out we might find the occasional occasional email out to like a small list of people, but I don't think we've even done that in a long time. So it's all kind of inbound stuff, and we create a brochure and we create offerings that they can sign up to, but we just don't have the resources to go chasing after people. So I mean, and I think about it sometimes that maybe we could hire someone to do it, but actually I'm not convinced the return of investment on paying someone to do that would actually, I'm not sure it would actually end up generating more enough money to cover the salary. So I don't, it's like we get sponsorship, we get some money from it. We don't we make the sponsors as happy as we can, but we don't necessarily put a lot of effort into it. So it's like, I don't think it's necessarily a bad situation.
It does, like at least it prevents sponsorship from coloring your event. Like it gives you more control with fewer sponsors over the community feel.
Yeah, and it's like keeping our costs as low as possible is a good thing as well. So it's like I think it's important to remember that when you're running a business, is that yes, you could generate more sales, but is it worth it in the long run? Is it worth the stress? Is it the kind of work that we enjoy doing? How much of a difference is it actually going to make? Do we want to go through the stress of hiring someone and not only what it costs to hire someone, but the time that we need to spend teaching someone how to do things? It all just starts adding up really quickly. But generally we get main sponsors for every event we have, but typically we can always sell a bit more. It's like we don't sell out on all the sponsor spaces. I don't necessarily think that's a big problem within itself.
Right on. Well, it looks like we're at time here, so go ahead and we'll wrap it up. And this will be available tomorrow sometime for anybody that wants to review or share. And our next event will probably be like a meetup style sometime next week. And then on October 22nd, we have another founder on for Q&A, which will be Juliet. And so thank you so much, Rosie, for being here with us. It was awesome to be able to just ask you questions one-on-one and just learn more about Ministry of Chess and everything you've built. Your whole story was very interesting. I think pretty unique too. Not the same story we hear over and over. So very refreshing. Yeah, so that's it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've built a great business. So have a good whatever time of day it is to everybody. And hopefully see some of you at the next one.
Cool.
Okay.
Good to meet you, Rosie.
Bye, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye.